Today's topic is, does volume equal profit?
Thank you, Mike. Well, good afternoon, everybody, and thank you for getting on the call. This topic today came about as a result of some emails and a phone call that came in to Mike. And he related to me, and he came up with that topic. Is volume equal profit? Because this coming year is, well, it's virtually guaranteed to be the biggest year in new car sales in many, many years, probably a decade at least. And the simple reason for that is we're going to have the most production we've ever had in history. And in November, we did a call, and at that point, I talked about that the manufacturers are going to have to do something to move 16.4 million cars that are going to be produced. That's an all-time record. And as we all know in the dealership world, never in the history of this industry could you ever visit one of the factory lots in, say, on November and say, how many 13s do you have left in stock like you could at a dealer? Because the answer for every factory in the world is none, because they, of course, push them on us. So, they wholesale on us, and then as they stack up and they can't push more on us, naturally, it's going to lead to more programs and more incentives. So at this point, I just wanted to take time and remind everybody because, Mike brought this to my attention. He really hit on something here that, the volume is going to increase. And as the volume of new cars increases, there's been a cycle that has repeated itself over and over again, all the way, in my recollection, since probably 1986, 85, when Ronald Reagan changed the tax laws, and you could no longer write off car interest on your loans, on your taxes. And people rushed out to buy a car because for a couple of years that benefit was going to be grandfathered in. And that saw a dramatic spike in October that year, dramatic spike in new car sales. Well, I believe we're going to have that again this year for sure. So this month alone, I've seen new car sales really start to surge. Leasing is way up beyond any point it's been in the last 7 years. That tells me that the factories are trying to find creative ways now to position themselves to move their record number of units. And as we all know, they only care about one thing, and that's market share. If there's any factory people on the line, sorry for this next statement, but guys, the next time they do something for us will probably be the first time they've done something for us. They're doing it to move units. And they're going to put the incentives on, and you're going to start to get flooded with some volume. What you need to be very mindful of is that volume, it really doesn't equal as much gross or as much net as it should. As a matter of fact, in some of the biggest months I've ever seen in this industry in new car sales, gross actually falls almost all the time. It doesn't rise. And the obvious reasons for that are, well, first, we get overwhelmed with the volume, so we stop doing the things that we need to do. We start shortcutting deals. We fall into bad habits. And once we start making the deals too easily and not working the deals, because there's another guy behind him and another guy behind him. And, one of the great lessons in this industry when you have a high demand was what Honda did and what Toyota did in the 80s, and it hasn't been done since, to my knowledge, with any consistency. In the late 1980s, when you went into Toyota and you wanted a Camry, you paid sticker or above. I had a close friend of mine that was a CPA, would shop the heck out of car dealers, and he walked in and his opening line was, I'm not going to pay a penny more than sticker. It absolutely amazed me then, and to this day it still does. Extremely educated guy who will grind the dust off any deal for anything in his life, and he walked in with that because the demand was so great. And Honda at one point was, you want an Odyssey? Yeah, well, it's a 2-month waiting period. We want $2,000 non-refundable deposit. And what equipment do you want? And color? Well, I can't guarantee your color. And people lined up to buy them. When we make it too easy, we shortcut our processes. We shortcut the processes, we devastate the gross. And we start to look at trades differently. We become careless. We believe in this business, and we always have. And the manufacturers have. In fact, the ones that went bankrupt, Well, they were the top 2 in the world. They're no longer the top 2 in the world because they thought this one simple thing: volume covers a multitude of sins. And to an extent it does in any given month in a car dealership, but if you ever did a full analysis, you would find out that volume cost you money. I can see the money we made, but if you don't have an average that's accurately measured against the average that you've been having all along, you could say I sold 10 more cars, I sold 80. If your gross cost's $200 a unit, you lost $16,000. Don't kid yourself that you sold 10. You just lost $16,000. And what about the trades? Is your process tight and ironclad for the trades? If the incentives on the new cars, for instance, General Motors supplier price, if we're selling at supplier price, we have to be extra vigilant, extra intelligent as to how we appraise these trades and the value that we put on them. Does it scare you to pass on a skinny deal? It shouldn't. And then probably one of the things is the residual effect from this. So when we get too busy and our processes break down and we take shortcuts, more or less we become a little bit more order taker than professional salesperson. The residual effect is our inventory for used cars gets a little out of whack, and that lingers, becomes aging problems, value problems, etc. And the other thing it will do is it will carry forward into coming months. I have seen dealerships have wonderful processes, and the second the busy season starts, 3 or 4 months later, you would not recognize the place as to what their process is and how they sell cars. And the theory is, well, I'm too busy. If you're too busy to maximize your profit, you're in the wrong business. That's exactly the time. You want to make as much money as you possibly can in these prime times, these prime years. We've all seen it go up and drop down. So in order to make this kind of money, to derive the profits, both gross and then, of course, followed by net, we need to maximize our opportunities. So for today's message, I just want to make sure that everybody, take a deep breath and do that checkup on your processes. Make sure that things are tight, and as it gets busy, that you take the time to measure those processes. When we get busy, we get a little reckless. We cost ourselves money. So I just want to make sure that today I get the message across to you that more than anything in the world, we're going to have a great year this year. Everybody knows that it's coming. Be prepared. Stay true to your processes and maximize your gross profit. I hope you all have a great day. And when Mike distributes this call, you're going to be able to reach back to us through Mike, and any suggestions you have for next week's call or any comments or questions that you have for this week's call, please feel free to contact us, and I'll get back to you within 24 hours, and I'll be glad to spend any amount of time chatting with you that you'd like. I want to thank you very much for listening today, and I look forward to speaking again next week.